Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of My Beautiful Chaos with Misty Fitch of Fearfully Made Ministries.
All right, this week I have my first guest on this podcast. It is Trammell, and we met several years ago. I don't even know how many years ago it was, at the gym. At the gym, back when I was at the gym all the time. And it probably was not our highest moments. We were going through some difficult things, both of us. And I think that's how we kind of connected, was just going through some similar things. And we don't see each other that much except through social media, even though you live right down the road. But I wanted to invite Anne to tell a little bit about her story and her husband's story. I do want to preface by saying this is a little bit different than any of my podcast episodes. This is not at all about pro or anti-vaccinations. It's not anything like that, but I do want her to tell her story. So Anne, you have the floor. Tell me a little bit about what has been happening since December, right?
Yes, this all started actually the last day of the year. So it was December 31st. While my husband was at work, he got his vaccine, and he came home that night. He called. He always calls in the evening, and he said, my arm hurts, but I expected that, but my shoulder hurts and it's kind of creeping across my back, and I just don't really feel that great. So I was like, okay, and then weirdly, even though it was New Year's Eve, they didn't get any calls, which is very, very strange for them. And then he came home the next morning and he looked awful. He was gray. He looked like he had been through something really awful. So I asked, how he's feeling. And he said, well, he was just tired, felt a little fluish. And so he went back to bed. He slept most of the day. And then it was about 24 hours later that he woke up and he said, well, the flu-like symptoms are starting to go away. My head is starting to clear a little bit. I don't feel quite as much like I have the flu. I just hurt. My body just hurt. And so the next day when he woke up, he said, my body just really hurts. I just hurt. I feel like I get hit by a car. I don't know what's wrong. And so that whole day we, tried to figure out how to help him feel better. We never figured out anything that day. The next day he called work and said, hey, am I still supposed to be feeling like this? It was about 5 days after the shot. And they said, no, we're going to go send you to have a test. Because there have been a couple of people who had tested positive shortly after getting the shot, just from bad timing, they think. So they sent him to get a COVID test. He tested negative for COVID. He tested negative for flu. He tested negative for flu A and B. Then the next week, he decided to try to get up and go to work. Now, he had not moved for about a week, and he said, yeah, but I'm burning too much time, so I'm going to get up and I'm going to drive into work. I have no idea how he got to work. I have no idea how he got home from work. I think there was a guardian angel over his car, because it's the only way it was possible. He got to work. His captain looked at him and said, you're not staying, go home. They called him later that day. They sent him for a second COVID and flu test. He had his second test done. Those were all negative again. I had been to the doctor because I broke my arm, and I mentioned to the doctor what had happened. And he said, well, it sounds like he's having, an overall allergic reaction. And I'd had other people mention maybe he was having an allergic reaction. So they said, try Benadryl. So he took Benadryl, and that was the worst night we had the whole time. That thus far, that was the worst night we'd had. He would not let me leave his side until the Benadryl wore off. He was in so much pain from the Benadryl. He didn't want me to move. He didn't want to go to the ER, but he didn't want to move because he said, well, what are they going to do when you have an allergic reaction to Benadryl? What are they going to do? Because they can't really give you anything else but Benadryl. So from there, basically, he started seeing our primary care physician. The pain symptoms, they changed a little bit, but they haven't gone away. So initially it was he was just tired and his body just hurt. And he described it as being in a car accident, really bad car accident. Then his nerves kind of got involved. So he had some nerve pain on top of the muscle pain. And then his joints got involved. So now he has kind of the combination of the three: joint, muscle, and nerve pain. We went through every kind of medication you could think of for everything. I mean, we tried even some medications they gave to COVID patients and they didn't work. So we finally found just pain medication that gets his pain level from an 8 or a 9 to usually like 5 or 6. And we've been to our primary care doctor. We've been to specialists. He has had blood work. He had more blood work actually yesterday. So yesterday made 18 vials of blood so far.
Oh my goodness.
And his blood tests come back fine. All the numbers are fine. You know, because they said, well, you maybe go to an immunologist. So we went to the immunologist and he did all the blood work. And then they said, well, go to the rheumatologist. Well, the rheumatologist said, well, everything's fine in your blood work. We can redo it, but you just had it done. And so I don't expect it to be any different. And then he basically said, but we can talk about things that you might see in the future based on the fact that his mom took him to the rheumatologist because I had an appointment at the same time. So since his mom was there, they got more into her history than his history. And so that just kind of went downhill fast. But we have tried just anything and everything that you can think of. I've talked to Moderna actually over the phone. I'm one of the few people that has actually gotten through to them. The CDC knows, the FDA knows. He has a VAERS report, I think is how it's said. It's the VAERS system. They tell you to do that. The most shocking thing about the VAERS system so far has been that his report was filed with them on January the 12th. We got confirmation via email that they received it, not processed it, but received it last Monday.
Oh my goodness.
So that's the part that frustrates me, because the same day that we got the email talking about they had received this report that was filed with them electronically in January is the same day that the news had something about the VAERS reports not showing a whole lot of danger with the vaccine. And so my thought is, you know, if we're going to look at apples to apples, we need to know what the VAERS system is saying now, not what it's saying in January. Because in January there were thousands of people, but not millions of people who'd had the vaccine. So it's not really, I mean, they weren't comparing apples to apples, and they weren't really even comparing apples to oranges. Somebody the other day said maybe it was more like apples to kangaroos.
Wow.
You know, is what they're actually comparing, because it's hard to say, well, this isn't showing anything when they're 3 months behind. But it's been different. It's basically upended everything that we've done. I mean, everything. It upended everything because he works 24-hour shifts and then he has 48 hours off. So it was every 3 days he goes to work, comes home. But on his 48 hours off, everything in our house runs very much like teamwork. You know, we do chores together, we do errands together, we do things like that. And it works very much like a team. And so since that's happened, he is very frustrated because he can't do that. So for him, it's been very difficult because he can't help and he can't do those things. He had a doctor ask him this week why he didn't just go out and do something. And he said, because we take walks and we go 4 or 5 houses and he comes back, and 4 to 5 houses down and back is 20-minute walk.
Wow.
So, you know, where are we going to go? You know, what is he going to do? So he's just very frustrated because he can't do that. But at the same time, that also means then that I get to do that. So it just is a very different scenario. Right now, for example, he's asleep. He had lunch, he took pain medication, and now he's taking his afternoon nap. He had a nap this morning. He was up for a little bit, and then he had lunch. Now he's taking a nap again. He'll get up around dinner time.
Was he typically a nap taker?
He is a nap taker, but they call in the fire department, they like to call them safety naps. The reason for a safety nap is in a 24-hour shift, you truly can work the full 24 hours. Right. So they learn to take naps through the day, but generally it's, you know, they eat lunch and then they go take like a 45-minute nap to prepare themselves if they have to get up in the middle of the night and go help somebody do something. But his mother is actually very adamant about naps. She was that way. That was her sanity when he has a brother. So when the boys were little, it was lunch is over. You're going to go take a nap for an hour. I don't care if you sleep, but you're going to your room for an
I
hour.
did the same thing.
so she still does that. They actually live next door to us. So they still do that every day after lunch. She still has his dad go and take a nap every day for an hour after lunch. So, I mean, he is a napper, but he's not quite, usually it's like he'll take like an hour nap. But now he slept for about 3 hours this morning, and he will probably get up. It's, about 2:00, I guess now. So he'll probably get up between 4:30 and 5. And then he'll probably go to bed this evening around 9. And that's basically how he's been.
He's still in pain pretty much 24 hours a day.
Yes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week since January 1st, since he woke up on January 1st.
He doesn't, I'm assuming he just doesn't move around very much. You said walking like a few houses is hard, but.
Well, I forgot to add, at the beginning of February, I noticed his balance was significantly worse just because his pain level has been so high. So he actually is walking with a cane for stability as well. So he's using a cane to walk, but he shuffles like you would expect an old man to shuffle. So he went from 24, 48 working fire shifts to walking around with a cane and, little things. He, the other day, decided to be really nice to me and decided to empty the dishwasher on his own. And he's asked me not to fuss at him too much about trying to do those things, because he really, if he does it, he really wants to try. It took him 45 minutes to empty the dishwasher, and he took a nap after he was done.
Oh my goodness.
And it's just, it's really sad to see. It's hard to see. It's hard to watch. 2 days ago, at like 12:30 at night, he just started yelling in his sleep, like he was being tortured, like what you'd see on a movie where they have somebody being tortured. He screamed like that for 15 minutes, and he was asleep the whole time. But it was very jarring for me,
I'm sure.
I asked him the next day, I said, well, how did you sleep? And he said, well, I think I slept okay. It's like, oh, okay.
I don't remember it. Wow. So for you, because this has drastically changed your life too.
Right.
And it's not at his fault. Let me also add, he's still fairly young and in decent shape. He's not like this elderly person who has all these underlying everything. He went the entire time never having COVID, right?
Right. Yeah. He went the whole year being a firefighter and paramedic and working shifts, working ambulances without ever having COVID, at least that we're aware of. He never had any symptoms. So if he did have it, he had it asymptomatically, but we don't think he had it. He doesn't have anything. His blood tests don't show that he ever had it. But no, he worked out about an hour a day, every day. He actually would fuss at me if I didn't do enough stuff. So we went from that to this.
Well, and we tend to think, this is really only bad for the older people, but I'm looking, he's not that much older than I am. But but aside from that, just the way that life has changed for you.
Right.
What gets you through your day? What keeps you going every day?
There are a couple different things. Some days are just almost like a remote control type of thing. It's that mom mode that we all kind of go into as soon as we start having kids. We have that, these are the things I have to get done today. So you go into that, this is my automatic mode. I'm going to do this today and this today and this today. So that is one, sometimes that's the motivation, because when I'm exhausted and it has to be done anyway, then it has to be done anyway. We've leaned a lot on faith. We've leaned a lot on each other. We've, had these conversations with our kids. We've done, just different things, friends and family and, people just being supportive. That's been a big help for me. But there are days where it is just, I think I'm just running on steam, basically, but that's what I have to do because it has to get done. The kids are here. They are actually being homeschooled here because of some issues that we had when it was remote learning with the district. And, we don't need to go into that, but They are here. And so that's another thing that I do every day is I do homeschool with them. Now, some of the assignments are obviously things they can do on their own. Some of the assignments are things that we do together. Some of the assignments are fun things like chemistry experiments. But it just makes it very, that breaks up the day a little bit. So it really varies by the day as to what we're going to do and how it gets done. And there are days where Saturday, for example, he did not feel well on Friday, and Saturday he didn't want me to leave his side for any reason. So if I sat, he sat. If I tried to get up, then he tried to get up. So then I had to sit basically most of the day, and we watched TV and we did all of that kind of stuff. So all of the things that you would normally do on a Saturday, chores and things like that, none of that got done. So that is actually all still on my list. So I'm slowly going through those, like at the end of the day. It's like, okay, well, it's 7:00 and I have, 2 hours left in my day. What can I fit in? Can I vacuum today? Can I do laundry today? Can I, and so those things have changed. It's been difficult.
I truly cannot imagine. And you mentioned that you lean on your faith. And that was a question that I wanted to ask you, because some people, their faith might be strengthened during this, but for a lot of people, it's almost like, why God? And I don't know that I'm going to still have faith. So where do you guys stand? How's that affected?
Well, it's actually been interesting. We both have gone through things, as I know you have as well, where they're definite tests. We definitely have had our faith tested throughout our whole lives, but we both come from very strong faith-based backgrounds. His mother is a retired minister. She became a minister when he was in high school. My mother was a youth director at a church. So, my church upbringing was you go unless you're sick. That's the only excuse. The only excuse to not go is if you are physically unable to go. But we both have had those times where it's been tested and we've said, why is this happening? And we do question that. I mean, we do still have those questions. Why? What is the lesson that we're supposed to learn here? Because we do think that there is some sort of lesson that we were supposed to learn with this, and we're still trying to figure it out. And he said the other day, maybe when we figure out what the lesson is, or we get the lesson right, maybe that's when this goes away. And I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. On the other hand, we know that, as weird as it sounds, we've actually been lucky that this is all it's done, because there are people who've had the vaccine and didn't survive it. And, there are people who have gotten more sick. And so we're trying to look at it and be positive with it and know that there's some sort of reasoning behind it. I have a daily devotional reading that I do every day. And I've picked a different book kind of every year, which actually is difficult because there really are not that many 365-day books. But the one that I had last year, I gave to him. So he's been reading that one, and that's new for him. So it's actually kind of pulled him closer to faith than anything has in a long time. Normally I'm the one saying, hey, do you want to do church on Sunday? Do you want to do this kind of thing? And now it's him saying, hey, what time do you want to do this or that? We've been very lucky in that our church does still do an online service. So he has been able to participate in that. So, we've both been able to participate in that. But I mean, it's been interesting because he does read this every day, and he'll send me, if I'm downstairs and he's upstairs or something, he'll send me a text and say, hey, today it said this, or, maybe we should have done that, or I hadn't thought about this. But it is easy to question, but I don't think it's bad to question.
No, I agree. I don't think it's bad to question at all.
I think if we didn't question, I think that would be more of a problem if we didn't have questions.
Right. And just kind of accept everything. And then you never learn whatever you're supposed to learn or see the story or the message that's in it. Before we go, I have I don't know if it's one question or two. We'll see how it because you talked about leaning on each other. And I think I remember you saying that you two even talked about you were going to get, again, we're not pro or anti-vaccine here, but you chose to get the vaccine even after all of this. And that was something y'all discussed as a couple, right?
It is something we discussed for a very long time. Before it all came out, we had seen the research, the limited amount of research that we were all given at the, last year when this all came out. But we did actually discuss it and we talked about it. I did actually get mine at the end of January. So we were about 3.5 weeks or so into what he's dealing with now. We did not know at that time that he would still be dealing with this now. Obviously, nobody thought that this was possible. Everybody assumed it was going to just go away, and it hasn't just gone away. But yes, I did end up getting it. I was very, very nervous to get my second shot. The first shot I got because I thought at that time, this is the right thing to do. This will be good for everybody. And then by the time I got my second shot, I guess my thoughts had changed quite a bit. So I was significantly more nervous, not really even about the side effects of the second shot, but just getting the shot at all. Mm-hmm. And I think that was very difficult. That was a very difficult day for me in a lot of ways. And, you know, I had a lot of people around me because I went to a shot clinic. Mm-hmm. It was done through the county, and there were lots of people, and they were all very excited, and they were talking about how excited they were because they were finally going to get this, and, you know, talking about, well, you know, they hadn't heard anything about side effects. And so I didn't really know how to respond or how to act. I just sat, you know, with all these people around me that were all so excited, and I was completely terrified. There was an article, I didn't know if I mentioned this to you or not, but there was an article that came out that said no one had had any. And so I reached out to the author of that article and I said, hey, I'm not sure if you want to hear this story or not, but she and I have still been going back and forth on things. She works for a national publication. I won't say which one. It's been interesting because she will contact me and say, are you hearing this, or have you heard any of that? And so we have gone back and forth about that, but I was very, very nervous and very concerned about getting the second one.
If you hadn't gotten it at all, and
right.
Today you were supposed to decide, I need to go get it or I don't, would you?
No. If the county called me this morning and said, today's your day, I would have absolutely said, no, I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, and we know lots of people that have done very well with it. His parents had it. My dad had it. Cousins have had it. And they've had various side effects of things, you know, feeling flu-like, being sick. My cousin had a migraine for 3 weeks. But just in dealing with what we've dealt with here, if I were called this morning and they said, hey, today is your day, I would say, no, thanks. Thanks anyway, but I'll just wait. Mm-hmm. Until they know more about it, really. That's my big thing, is they just don't know. We have talked about, you know, we have to come together and look at this and say, this happened for whatever reason that it happened. And we don't know what that reason is just yet. Whether, you know, we're supposed to be the story for other people to look at, whether he's supposed to learn something personally, whether I'm supposed to learn something personally. We honestly don't know what the end result goal is.
Well, I very much appreciate you being with me today. And I hope that all my listeners were able to get some information, some new information, and really see how your faith can even be strengthened during these hard times. I loved hearing that now he's reading and he's the one that's like, we got to go to church at this time. What time are we going to go? And I love that, because your faith can be strengthened in the difficult times. But we are going to end this for today. And until next time, friends.
Thank you for joining My Beautiful Chaos this week. If you have any suggestions for topics or questions you would like answered on an upcoming episode, email me at mybeautifulchaos@email.com. See you next week.